Star Trek. Voyager always deserved a movie, but the show's premise meant it couldn't follow TOS and TNG. When Star Trek Voyager premiered in 1995, it promised audiences a bold new twist on the formula that had guided the franchise for decades. Instead of a starship safely tethered to the Federation, Captain Janeway and her crew were stranded 70,000 light years away, cut off from Starfleet with no hope of backup or reinforcements. This premise was as daring as it was restrictive. And while the original series and The Next Generation both went on to spawn theatrical films that expanded their legacies, Voyager never received the same treatment. It wasn't because Voyager lacked characters strong enough for the big screen. On the contrary, Captain Catherine Janeway, Seven of Nine, and the Doctor remain some of the most iconic figures in Trek history. Nor was it because fans were uninterested. The show maintained steady popularity and became a gateway for a generation of viewers in the late 90s. The problem lay in the very DNA of the series. Its core concept made translating Voyager into a standalone film nearly impossible. While TOS and TNG could jump to movies, theatrical films for Star Trek had already set a clear pattern. When the motion picture launched in 1979, it built upon the nostalgia of the original series while placing its crew into a new adventure that didn't demand much prior knowledge. The Wrath of Khan then perfected the formula, showing that movies could deepen the mythology while still working as self-contained stories. When The Next Generation transitioned into film with Generations and later First Contact, the groundwork was already set. The Enterprise D and then the Enterprise E could continue their adventures with Starfleet as a backdrop. Because the crew wasn't trapped or isolated, the films could choose from an infinite number of mission of the week style plots. Both series had freedom baked into their premise, allowing movie scripts to spin off without disrupting the logic of their worlds. Voyager's premise was its shackles. Voyager, however, was never designed to be flexible. Its very premise, the struggle to get home from the Delta Quadrant, was serialized, even when episodes were self-contained. Every adventure, no matter how wild, circled back to the fundamental problem. The crew was far away from Federation space, with limited resources, and desperate to shave time off their 70-year journey. For a feature film to work, Paramount would have had to either 1. Pause the journey for a self-contained adventure that risked feeling like just another episode, stretched to 2 hours. 2. Advance the premise by drastically changing the timeline, shortening the trip, or jumping forward in ways that would undercut the show's episodic tension. Neither option worked cleanly. A standalone story would disappoint fans who expected something bigger from a film, while accelerating the journey home risked stepping on the show's long-form arc. What a Voyager movie could have looked like. Imagine if Paramount had greenlit a Voyager movie during the show's run in the late 90s. It would likely have been treated like a special 2-part episode, where the ship faces a massive threat in the Delta Quadrant. The challenge? The series already produced many such stories. Species 8472, the Borg, Hirigen, and countless others. A movie would have needed to either recycle these ideas or introduce an enemy even more formidable. Without the ability to tie back into Federation space or galactic politics, the scope would always feel smaller than a TNG or TOS film. Alternatively, a post-finale Voyager movie could have worked, exploring the aftermath of their return to Earth. What happened to Seven of Nine when she re-entered society? How did Janeway's decisions during the journey get judged by Starfleet Command? Did the Maquis members finally find peace in the Alpha Quadrant? These are compelling questions, but they're character-driven dramas, not cinematic spectacles. Studios in the late 90s and early 2000s wanted space battles and blockbuster energy, not nuanced political reckonings. Voyager's characters deserve the spotlight. What makes the lack of a Voyager movie sting most is how perfectly suited some of its characters were for cinematic storytelling. Captain Janeway, with Kate Mulgrew's commanding presence, could have anchored a feature film with ease. Seven of Nine's evolution from Borg drone to human individual is one of the most compelling arcs in all of Star Trek, tailor-made for the kind of emotional depth movies can spotlight. Even the Doctor, a hologram struggling with identity and humanity, had the kind of layered story that could captivate broader audiences. But Hollywood in the 90s didn't see Voyager as the right vehicle to carry the franchise into theaters. Instead, Paramount leaned on the Next Generation cast, believing they had the more bankable crew. The legacy of the movie that never was. In many ways, the lack of a Voyager film underscores how ahead of its time the show really was. Modern Star Trek series like Discovery and Picard embrace